A couple of weeks ago, I saw my friend Sargon having a disagreement with James Lindsay, another commentator that I like listening to. And the topic that they took umbrage of was liberalism. Sargon was saying that communism is the natural end conclusion of liberalism. Like, liberalism just brings communism. And James Lindsay found that to be ridiculous. And at the time, and I still do find it ridiculous due to the fact that it wasn't liberal societies that produced communism. It was the Soviet Union, right? Like, so Imperial Russia produced communism. We noticed it in China. We don't notice communism springing up in the UK. We don't notice communism springing up in the United States. So this is why I disagreed with the premise. But then he actually goes on and tries to explain what he means. And there's this article on the Lotus Eaters, which is written by him, and he talks about the five false assumptions of liberalism. Like this one right here: everyone is equal, the blank slate, equality of opportunity. Basically, what I think like can be said philosophically is because the founding fathers of liberalism, like John Locke, they looked at the natural state of man and they said, okay, so mankind in nature is equal, but the problem is that they don't really have property. Like, if you find a shiny rock and you're in the wild, the moment you left that shiny rock down, like, someone else can take it. So basically, men have gathered in societies in order to protect property. But as we're looking at the world today, you have income disparity. You have some people that are not being treated equal as others. So, like, the solution would be indeed communism. By abolishing private property, you fulfill the promise that these intellectual thinkers came up with. And my biggest rebuttal was, without getting into philosophical disagreements, is that I don't think the average person on the ground, the average construction worker or the average plumber, genuinely gives a shit about what Locke said. In fact, I'm willing to bet they don't even know what Locke said either. So, woke ideology or communism or whatever you wanted, it's not something that people are reasoned in. It's not something that you got like this woke ideological individual asking you to sit down so that they can explain to you about the patriarchy and about the cisgender heteronormative thinking, right? Like, it's not really like that. So I really disagreed with Sargon on his initial take. But then I thought about it, and I think there is some truth to it. I do think, like, Western culture is vulnerable to Marxism, especially due to this, the idea that everyone is equal. And I think, like, the way that Western society has deteriorated so much in terms of rights, like, for instance, how internet censorship was supported heavily by the masses, was through the accusation of racism, for example, right? So, like, what is racism? Well, you're accusing someone that they're not treating everyone equal. You're accusing them of being a racist, so therefore they're prejudiced and disparaging towards other people based on the color of their skin. And most people in Western society, they genuinely don't want to be called racist. So instead of avoiding being called racist, they sometimes submit and do literally what the activists demanded them of doing. It's like, oh, this company, you're hiring this guy, he's racist. Well, we don't want to hire racists, Jesus. We're going to fire him, right? Who do you want us to hire? Well, hire our activist, he's a good guy. And it's like, you put him there, right? And you have the grifters, and they're like, oh, we're going to fix racism at our company. Just pay us $100,000 a year. Like, things like that. And you notice, like, this wouldn't work in the Middle East. Because if you go into the Middle East, you will notice a completely different culture. Like most people in the Middle East, if you talk to them about their colonial past, they will say, oh, yeah, the Ottoman Empire, good shit, right? Good shit. And you're like, no, but like empire, slavery, bad. It's like, what are you talking about? Those were the glory days. Like, for example, if you go into Mongolia and you talk about Genghis Khan, which founded an empire, was a conqueror, even genocided people, they would say, oh yeah, Genghis Khan, what a Chad. They have statues of him and stuff. Like the culture is so different that woke ideology just can't work because you can't shame people with your principles. You can't be like, well, the patriarchy is, and people in Islam will say, yeah, I mean, the patriarchy is a thing. Like, it's in the Quran. Of course, we're patriarchal. I mean, How else can we be? I mean, we don't want to upset Allah, right? Like it is like such a different culture that the same woke ideology would just not be able to penetrate there. Like you would tell people, it's like, hey, don't you think you're a little bit misogynistic? And they would just give you the chant, yes. And what is the next play? Because most of these woke ideologues have no skill in persuasion. They have no skill in public debate. The only thing they know is shaming tactics, mob tactics, group tactics like this, right? So I'm not saying that those cultures are completely immune to Marxism, because Islamo-Marxism is a thing, but it's different. So, sure, a person that wants to subvert can tailor the ideology different to that nation. Like someone who wants to grab power and start a revolutionary movement would craft different ideologies and different theories. But definitely the ideological stuff of the West would not catch root there. And it would not catch root simply because they don't have liberal cultures. They have different cultures. Now, whether that is good or bad, it's up to you to decide. I mean, I personally wouldn't like living under a very strict society that's run almost like the military, or a group of people that organize society based on some superstitions that, forbid stuff like dancing or, just casual stuff that doesn't make any sense. I would still rather live in Romania, I personally. But, different people may have different tastes with this. Still, I don't think there is some merit to say that liberalism does have its weaknesses. And I think every single ideology has its weaknesses that can be exploited. It will be interesting to see if those weaknesses can actually be self-corrected, because there's only so long that you can call people misogynists until they realize what you're doing. And you're like, well, you're not actually interested in helping women, or you don't actually think that I'm actually a misogynist. You just want me to fire a person that you disagree with, to ban Kirche from an anime expo, in order to get your friends in those high places, in order to get your friends in those comfortable positions over there. And you're using these shaming tactics in order to try to get me to cave in. So in reality, it's like, I don't care about you. I don't trust you. I think you're a disingenuous person. So that can be like a self-correcting trend that we may witness in culture, but at the same time, it's also that the activists can also self-adapt, and they can just change their rhetoric to something else. It's like, okay, well, accusations of misogyny don't work anymore. Let's try with accusations of racism now. And they will just switch to that. And it's like, okay, well, accusations of racism don't work anymore. Let's try with the accusation of ageism or Islamophobia or transphobia, right? So they will just try to make different accusations until eventually, like, people will start recognizing the tactics and the patterns, and they'll be like, okay, so you just want to grab power. Like, you're not really interested in helping anyone or helping minorities and fulfilling the liberalist dream. You're just interested in getting power and putting your friends in high places while getting everyone that disagree with you to be fired. Anyway, it was an interesting thought experiment, and I just wanted you guys to know as well. Let me know what you think, and as usual, I will see you in the comment section. Take care.